strikeout. He kind of reminds me of Hideki Irabu. If anyone remembers Hideki Irabu from Japan, who went to the Yankees, I don't know, 25 years ago, when Seinfeld was on. But he's kind of like that. He strikes people out. You're either gonna smash him or he's gonna strike you out. So he has zero history against the Rangers. So when a pitcher has zero history against someone, usually it's advantage pitcher for at least a couple of innings until they get to the second round of batters. He has a tendency to just blow up. So to be honest, you don't know what you're going to get from him. You know you're going to get strikeouts. His strikeout rate is almost 11 per 9 innings. So he's going to strike people out. He's been going 99, 98, 100 pitches. So the Reds are leaving him in, but he's very inefficient. Against the Mariners, he went 4 innings. It took him 98 pitches to go 4 innings, and he only allowed 1 run. So he's one of those, we're in the business of predicting the future, and people who are erratic like this is very difficult to predict. I would stay away from this game. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%. He does have the stuff. He's still very young, but it just can't be trusted. I said the same thing about Gil yesterday. He's either going to strike you out or walk you. And the Brewers, pretty patient lineup there, and took advantage of some opportunities. He didn't get the loss. He was out of the game, but he didn't get the decision. But the Yankees bullpen kind of melted there when they had some opportunities, which is kind of crazy because I thought, they were rested. They were in good shape in that game yesterday, and they still ended up getting blown out there in extra innings as they couldn't get the big hit when they needed. Shocker. Stop me if you've heard that before. But they have another interesting matchup here, game number 2 in this series. I know a lot of guys that liked the Brewers yesterday didn't trust Gil. The question is, do we trust the Yankees to bounce back in this spot here today?
I do like Rodon's chances against Ross because Ross is so someone earlier said they don't trust Ranger Suarez. I don't trust John Ross. So Glenn Garrett, whatever. I don't trust him. I think Rodon is going to. I think the Yankees are pretty much going to take care of business today. I don't have a play on that game actually. But Rodon's historical stats against the Brewers. Brewers are actually surprisingly one of the better lineups in Major League Baseball, but I think Yelich is out. And I know it's surprising because the Brewers are one of those teams that's kind of like the Padres. They're always just kind of ho-hum on offense. But this year, things will regress. That's why they play 163 games.
5.36 runs per game. To your point there, TB, is this Brewers lineup has been really, really good, and I don't know what to make of Rondon. We were hoping that last year, throw it out, coming off the injury and everything else. He's got a low ERA. He's got 22 strikeouts, 13 walks, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark for the ratio. The Yankees are 9-3, by the way, in 1-run games. That's usually a good sign down the road, but at some point, everything comes back to the middle, TP, doesn't it? They lost one last night.
Nice.
Are what you're seeing from Rondon, is this guy, by July, is he going to be the guy that he was a couple of years ago with the Giants?
I think so, because he's only 31 years old, and he's thrown 87 pitches in every start, and he hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs. He gave up 3 earned runs in 1 start, and the rest he's given 2 or less. I'm starting to be a believer. I kind of thought he would get whacked pretty hard this year, but I'm proven wrong. He's really lighting it up. I don't see any reason to think this won't continue. His FIP is decent, which is normally a sign of if someone's going to regress or degress. He's pretty solid. So, as you know, as sports bettors, if you bet someone is due for something, you're always going to lose. What you need you need to do is ride what's happening now until it doesn't happen anymore. So I'll ride Rodon until he proves me otherwise. But he's lights out so far. So far, so good.
He's been, I mean, give him credit. He didn't quite get the kind of run support that he might have hoped early on, but we'll see if he can get it here today in game 2 against the Brewers. I did see a comment, right? We saw it on the under 8.5. It looked like coming in from the chat room there. So we appreciate you guys taking the time to stop back. Ray here, Mike Scott, Eric, Titan CT, the gang. They already know who I'm betting later today here in the NBA side of things. In fact, double R1L, Steve Merril coming up here in just a few. We're going to start breaking down those NBA games. But we did see also some questions regarding the Orioles here today in their second game against Oakland. Now, listen, you and I were here just when the season started, and we were laughing at the Oakland A's. I mean, honestly, we were like, good Lord, is this team ever going to win 45 games? They're going to be trash. I didn't anticipate the bullpen being, by the way, their lineup is trash. Make no mistake about it. But, man, what good pitching beats bad hitting all the time. And they are in a lot more games than we thought they were going to be, including that game last night against Baltimore. So here we go, game 2. I saw a lot of money coming in on the under overnight here. It's down to 8. It was 8.5 here. Now looking at 8s here with Sears and Irvin on the mound here. What's going on with this A's team? Can we trust them?
Yesterday, when I tweeted out, 1 in a million, the White Sox and the A's are going to win on the same.
Actually, it's so true.
I both of them and lost, so hey, that's how it goes. But we cannot trust this team. But actually, the A's bullpen, I have them ranked 9th in Major League Baseball right now. I have the Orioles bullpen ranked 18th. But this is fluid. These are fluid numbers. But yeah, the A's bullpen is performing. The problem is they only have 2 guys in their lineup that can hit, and Rooker is actually the one who won the game for him yesterday, hitting that double in the bottom inning or top of the 10th inning. So they have 2 decent hitters and they have a good bullpen. So anytime you have good pitching, like you said, Joe, anytime you have good pitching, you have a shot. I don't think the A's are as trash as the White Sox or the Rockies, but they are. Fair. They're close to trash. The thing is,
they call it what it is. They're trash, but they have good enough pitching to be able to, steal some games they probably have no business doing. Because I have their under win total here this year. I didn't expect them to win 50 games. But I didn't also encounter at this point in the season. You're telling me they're a top 10 bullpen right now. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Right now, the bullpen is. The problem is they can't hit. So that equals a lot of unders.
Yes.
As it was yesterday. So I think under would be a way to look at this team going forward, but not against the Orioles. I mean, yesterday it turned out to be an under. Last season, Sears was their only savior at pitching, but this year they got a couple of decent pitchers who are actually pitching quite well, and Sears is not pitching well. So, I mean, it's an anomaly. It's kind of a weird thing. I think unders will be the way to go regarding the A's going forward. Maybe not today, though, because actually,
so then explain to me.
Down earlier, and Sears and Irvin both have horrible numbers against the other team. So I don't think today's game is going to go under.
It's kind of crazy because the money's been coming in. It opened up 8.5 last night, and now it's 8, and the money is continuing to roll in. And I know somebody in the chat was saying we're expecting Irvin to absolutely turn into a pumpkin and blow up at some particular point. And we'll see if they can get a couple of runs rolling here today because. My goodness. And we have another anomaly, by the way, on the board here. We saw it yesterday. We made a big deal of it on First Pitch TB with what in the hell are the Marlins a favorite in any way, shape, or form against anybody? They went with the rookie Maldonado yesterday. It was a great game up until, of course, when they lost, like we all thought they would. Pretty good plus price there for Washington. But I believe Mitchell Parker on the mound, right? And I guess the market's not necessarily buying into the success in his first couple of starts here that he has had. So here we go again. Marlins as a favorite on the road. What are we doing?
So yeah, I have a motto regarding baseball. I never bet against Jesus. And yesterday, Jesus was supposed to be picked, but he got taken out. He ended up Luzardo, of course.
Yep.
So yeah. Look, I have the Marlins. Where do I have them ranked? I have their batting ranked 25th out of 30, and I have their bullpen ranked 15 out of 30. So they're just toiling in mediocrity or sub-mediocrity. Yep. Unless they have a solid pitcher on the mound, I would never bet. I would never back this team. Cabrera is fairly solid. Parker's unproven, but has solid numbers. Man, I just wouldn't know where to go on this. But anytime the Marlins are favored, you'd have to fade them, wouldn't you? I mean, they're total trash. They're 2-12 at. So,
yeah,
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, they're on track. And by the way, I misspoke. They are home. I'm sorry. I read it's wrong on the graphic. But yes, it's the Marlins are home with Cabrera on the mound. But again, in what way, shape, or form should the Marlins be laying back-to-back numbers here in even against Washington, who has already proven that, there's levels to crap, TB, right? And we talked about Oakland. There's a level and a ceiling, and I wouldn't consider Washington to be below Miami in any way, shape, or form. But Cabrera's either going to strike you out or he's going to walk you. It's going to be one or the other. And this kid Parker is worth keeping a look at because he has actually been pretty good here. 57 to 73. He threw for strikes. He shut out the Astros for 7 innings. 8 Ks in his last outing, and now he faces one of the worst OPS teams in the league in the Marlins. So, I don't know, over in the Ks, why not?
Yeah, or this game will probably end up going, well, I would like to say this game would probably end up going under because we have the 25th hitting team and the 20th hitting team. Unfortunately, Washington's bullpen, I have 27 out of 30. So you never know. Miami could open it up at the bottom. But under probably the only way to go in this one because you got 2 pitchers, like you just said, very unproven, but so far looking very shiny. Both of these starting. Yeah. I'm not betting it.
No, I know. And there was, I know Eric and a bunch of guys in the chat rooms. By the way, shout out to those of you joining us via Instagram. By the way, Merck Brothers Pizza in the house. As always, living life. We appreciate you guys swinging by. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you could. Those of you joining us on this Saturday edition of Last Call here on WagerTalk. We got plenty of NBA coming up to talk about. R1L, Steve Merril will be in the house, so we'll get his thoughts on those games as Tokyo Brandon ready to go and cash a few tickets in the MLB here today. And we do have a game. I had to look twice, and then I realized what was going on here because anytime you see a total posted at 17, TB, you're either playing in a hurricane or you're in Mexico. It's one or the other, and I believe that's where Houston is in this game here today against Colorado. It's one or the other here with Blanco taking off. This is going to be, look at that total, TB, 16 and a half, 17. You're either in a hurricane or in Mexico City. So you decide which one, but I am absolutely not sweating out an under here.
I mean, under would be the only way to go because Blanco's been so good. He had that perfect game, no hitter earlier in the season. Quantrill, wow, he's horrible. Yeah, but I mean, I if there's going to be 16 runs, I'd say maybe 11 of them are going to be the Houston's runs.
That's exactly. What is the team total in there, too? We'll have to look at that up, too, because how are we getting to 17 runs in this game. Somebody has got to be a major contributor in this game, and Blanco has not been barreled enough for me to think that the Colorado lineup can do it. Maybe the bullpen of Houston, because Lord knows they have been hot ass. So maybe that's maybe we're going to get a lot of runs late, but team total sounds like it's not a bad look here.
Yeah, until you look at it, it's 9.5 for the Astros, and it's 6.5 for the Rockies.
Wow. Wow.
You can the Astros to score against Quantrill in a bad way. In Mexico, hey, the stars are aligning.
That's it. I said it. Here we go. I can't believe it. Houston, absolutely trouble. But the game is in the altitude of Mexico City. But I don't know how big of an adjust. 7,000 feet, I think, is what they said. Now, that's not going to affect the Rockies. It would be the only thing I would say if you're looking for an angle here, and they are 17 over under is a joke, Big Daddy. Yes. But at 7,000 feet, it's not going to affect the Rockies because they're used to altitude. The Astros, however, that might take a little bit of adjusting, at least in game one. No, TB? Because that's a totally different world playing in that.
Yeah, if baseball players were actual, hardcore athletes, maybe. But, it's not like they're playing. It's not like they're playing. Any sport where Cecil Fielder was a star, we're not exactly talking top shape athletes here. So, but I mean, some of them are in good shape, like Bryce. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to be chiseled to play baseball. Let's put it that way. You do have to be chiseled to play tennis. So, I don't know if the altitude really affects people. It affects the ball, but I don't think. I think Astros will. I would take a side, and I'd take the Astros in this one rather than a total, because I remember a game last year, the year before, they were playing it in Mexico, and the total was 15.5, and I was like, "There's no way it's going 15." It's the under. In game one, they scored 23 runs in the game. I forgot the teams. And then game two, it was an under. It was 7-3. So, it's so erratic. I don't want to bet things that are erratic, but the Astros are probably going to win. If I'm going to bet this game, I bet the Astros.
So I got to send a shout out to Lingowick there in the YouTube Shorts chat room. Goes, listen, man, I can't turn down a first five under 8. So he's all over the first five under 8. And I think Eric said that they're giving out meatballs with Coors beer in the parking lot in Mexico City there. So that should be a whole lot of fun. Now, speaking of that, guys, for those of you that don't know, Tokyo Brandon, I'll give you 3 guesses as to where he resides. And there's a backstory to this. And TB was nice enough. He just attended a game there in Japan, and he brought back a couple of photos for us, TB. And the first photo that stuck out to me is, first of all, the field was absolutely gorgeous here. But there are some, I guess, in between innings, we got dancers? Are they clearing the field? What is going on here with some of these pictures?
That's the stadium, the Yokohama stadium. Those are cheerleaders.
Cheerleaders at baseball games. Love it.
Yeah, they have every team has a cheerleading squad. This is Yokohama Bay Stars. This is inside the stadium, the concession stands. You can see the food and stuff over there. I ate some.
Yeah, what am I ordering here? What is this?
Fried chicken.
What kind of beer is that? And how much is that beer?
It's Kirin beer. It's 800 yen, so that's about $650 for a beer.
God, $650 a beer at a stadium? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's much better than the U.S. And this I have to talk about this girl. So Japanese baseball games, they have these beer girls that go around and they give you your beer so you don't have to get out of your seat. So it's very nice. They're always these very young, 20-year-old, attractive young girls serving the beer. But this girl on the right, she was sitting in front of me, and I don't know her, but Man, she ate for 3 hours straight. She's got a rice bowl right there. She ate three.
She just shoveling it in with the chopsticks.
She had three of those rice bowls. Then she had some hot stickers. And then she had some curry rice. She ate for 3 hours. She's like a thin, like 25-year-old thin girl. She was just chowing down. I was like, I felt like I was gaining weight watching. But anyway, it was a fun time.
I love it. The pictures are great, man. You get cheerleaders at the games. Who won the game, by the way? And is there any KBO or NPN we ought to be looking at here this weekend?
The Yomiuri Giants won that game 2-1. I did get to see a couple of home runs, which was a nice thing. So yeah, that was fun. KBO, I haven't put my plays out for KBO yet. But I am kind of eyeing the Samsung Kiwoom game because Denny Reyes is going for Samsung. I like what he's doing so far, and I think Samsung might take this. I haven't crunched the numbers yet, so I don't have a play on it, and I don't think the lines are even out yet, so there might not be odds for it. But I'm going to probably be eyeing Samsung here, depending on what the line is.
Looking at Samsung here today, but don't forget about it. Opportunity here to head over to TB's page at WagerTalk.com. Locked and loaded, TB, ready to go, continuing to crush the Major League Baseball season, as well as the KBO and Japanese League, not to mention downing $6 Kiernan beers. Got to love that at the stadium. We've got to take a trip because it's $18 for Coors Light at a stadium here, and it's the most obnoxious thing in the world here. We appreciate you, TB. Listen, best of luck with the plays here today. All right, cash those tickets. We'll talk to you again during the week. Tokyo Brandon, catch him over at WagerTalk.com. All right, plenty more baseball games to go over, but we also have plenty of NBA games here today. For, in fact, that we are going to start breaking down, and nobody better to do it than Double R, 1L, Steve Merril in the house, ready to go on this Saturday. Did you know they had cheerleaders at the Japanese Professional League, Merril? Did you know that?
Yeah, it's not baseball without cheerleaders. Everybody knows that. By the way, that was Kobayashi's younger sister sitting in front of Brandon.
Yeah.
So
I've seen him eat in person, and that is the most nauseating thing you will ever see in your life here. Nothing like watching a grown-ass man eat 85 hot dogs in 10 minutes. You won't be right for days after that. But yes, we did see some quality pictures there from the games. Fields look great. Cheerleaders. I know Eric was looking for a zoom-in shot. You freaky bastard, Eric, and we appreciate you. And again, shout out to those of you joining us. Matty Crenshaw, Kenny Bop is in the house there on IG, Instagram. Little day drinking going on already, as it appears that everyone seems to think maybe the Celtics are going to win today. But I think we all know better than that here. But Merril, come on, man. Let's dive into a couple of these NBA games going on here for the folks, and we've got 4 of them today, and we'll start in the time order in which these games get going. And I believe the NBA thought long and hard about putting this game in prime time, but opted for 1 o'clock instead. The Orlando Magic taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and boy, oh boy, Orlando with a huge bounce back there in Game 2. And here we go. We are seeing a bucket, right? -2. It was 2.5. We're seeing the total hovering right around what it was last game, and it's squeaked over. What are we going to get here in Game 2 here? Is it bounce back city for the Cavs?
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for the Cavs. First of all, I've had a pretty good feel in this series. In Game 1 last Saturday, I had a best bet on Cleveland, minus the 4.5. Easy winner from start to finish. They never trailed. I stayed off Game 2 because Cleveland is my preferred side in this series, but I thought maybe Orlando bounces back. But I didn't trust the young team on the road, so I stayed off Game 2 and was glad to see them lose by double digits again, because what it did was set up a great play on Orlando Thursday night in Game 3. And my clients and I took advantage, not only with Orlando full game, but we also had Orlando first half, and they won the game by 38. They were up over 40 at one point in the second half. But I think it now sets up the zigzag for Cleveland. They are the better team in this series. Keep in mind, when the series started, they were minus 200. They're still up 2-1. They're minus 370 now, and we're getting them at plus money dog. We're getting them at a bigger price now than in game 3, in which they were in a terrible spot. So this is when the zigzag works. It's when the odds makers make an adjustment because of the blowout. I always like to play teams off a blowout loss in the playoffs, especially the better team in the series. So I do expect Cleveland to get back on track. I like them at plus the 2.5 here, and I definitely would not talk you off some money line action at plus 115 as well.
So, all right, we're expecting them ready to go in a bounce back spot, going down 3-1 could very well be the situation here with the Magic today. So we'll see. They've been great at home, and they showed that in the last game. We'll see, though, if they can stop the bleeding there, the Cavs, and get back on track. Also trying to get back on track. How about New Orleans down 2-0, Merril? 3:30 Eastern time, tip in this one. And we've got, well, I mean, listen, it's put up or shut up time here in New Orleans. You're at home. OKC has been rolling. Feel like they have gotten better and better and better here. What are you doing with OKC here and New Orleans coming up a little bit later here at 3:30 Eastern time?
Yeah, to show what a redheaded stepchild series that Orlando-Cleveland series is, Game 4 will be done before Game 3 even starts for this series or the Boston-Miami series. They're going to be a full game ahead. And Cleveland, of course, was the 1 o'clock Saturday game last week. I referenced having to play on that. They were the NBA TV game 2 and 3 this week. They get bumped up to TNT finally at 1 o'clock, but it's Game 4. So now we go back to the 2 Game 3s. And both of the Oklahoma City, New Orleans, Miami, Boston are the 1-8s. They both played a day later, Game 2. They both played Wednesday. Everybody else played Monday, Tuesday. And it makes sense because both New Orleans and Miami, the 8 seeds, had to play Tuesday/Wednesday and then a must-win Friday, turnaround travel, play Sunday. So they gave them the extra day, play Wednesday, and now they have the extra day. They're playing Saturday afternoon. This is a situation, once again, where we have an 0-2 home team. We talked about Orlando coming out strong in Game 3. Philly came out strong in the second half. Philly didn't cover the first half, but they did win and cover the game overall on Thursday. The one team that has not done it was Phoenix. Huge disappointment. In fact, I was on a perfect 12-0 all-sports run, perfect 9-0 start to the NBA playoffs until the Suns decided to play like you-know-what last night. Keep in mind, Phoenix was the pre-series favorite, and they're now down 0-3. So just one of those things. Just shows why you can't hit 100%. We're still 12-3 over the last 15 plays. But Phoenix, a major underachiever last night. Now, New Orleans, Oklahoma City is a different situation because we've got an 8 seed down 0-2. They are the inferior team, especially without Zion. But I think the betting market of the odds makers are telling us something here. Oklahoma City, a 1 to 1.5 point full game favorite, yet New Orleans is a 1.5 point first half favorite. We've only seen this one other time this season, only a handful of times in my 30-year career. That, of course, was a couple nights ago. The Lakers were that other team down 0-2 that I didn't talk about yet. And what were the Lakers? They were a 1.5 point home favorite in the first half. They were a pick'em to -1 in the game. In fact, the Lakers were a bigger first quarter and first half favorite than full game last Thursday. And that's the same thing for New Orleans here. So once again, if you like New Orleans, I think you play them early to get out fast with the energy of the home crowd. If you do like Oklahoma City, I would recommend the full game, or I would recommend waiting until in game when they maybe get down early and they get an adjusted price, get them as a dog. But if I had to choose between those two options, I would prefer to have New Orleans in the first half minus the 1.5. I liked OKC the other night. We gave it out free on my video. We gave it out free when I did the show with you on Wednesday. But it was a blowout win. I could see them maybe taking their foot off the gas early here. So I think New Orleans first half is probably the best way to play this game.
So some interesting comments coming in from the chat room. Bokum Dano telling us OKC hasn't played away from home since April 7th. And that is a long time to be at the crib and not be away. Absolutely. With that, that's a good point. I'm seeing a lot of Pelicans first half, maybe a push and get that. I'm trying to figure out if the Pelicans have any home court advantage, Merril, because every time I've seen a game here, that is the worst crowd I think I've ever seen at a bas. Like, why have a team? It looks like they're just all trying to figure out who the Saints drafted. Like, they could care less whether the Pelicans are actually even in the city. It's kind of a freaky thing here, but they have not been on the road. They've been home for a while. Now they got to go on the road here to New Orleans. I'll tell you this, Merril, ain't nothing happening if C.J. McCollum don't get off, either get blank or get off the pot. You know exactly it here, McCollum. He has been MIA in this series, and I'll give OKC some credit, but if he ain't shooting, I don't know what other choice they have here. I don't think they can compete with OKC.
Excellent point about the home court, and that is one of the reasons I'm kind of lukewarm on this one. It's why I did not make my client card. I talked about that 2-0 sweep with Orlando first half, Orlando full game. I'm not using this game. I would lean towards New Orleans, but that's exactly why I left it off, Joe, is that they don't have a strong home court. In fact, they had the best road record in the NBA this year, better than any team, and they still went 0-2 at Oklahoma City. So they don't have a home court edge. They're just 22-20 at home versus 28-14 during the regular season on the road, or 28. They're 28 now and 16 after the 2 losses. So that is a concern. And you're right, the crowd isn't exactly there either. This will be an early afternoon start on a Saturday. So that does concern me. And that's what kept it off for me, is that they don't have a strong home court. Whereas Orlando, extremely good at home, weak on the road. That's why we saw them bounce back. But I still think New Orleans, it's not always New Orleans coming out strong. It's a lot of times the winning team comes out a little flat. And Oklahoma City, after winning by over 30, might come in a little complacent. Another guy I'll mention, too, which is interesting as far as the player props, is Ingram. They need him to step up. He's coming back from injury. He had only 12 points in game 1. Had really 18 points, only 18, I say, because he only took 10 shot attempts, no threes. He has been under in both games. It was 21.5, and then it was 19.5. He got 12 and 18. But going back further, he's played 5 games now since coming back in April. He has scored in those 5 games 18 or less for the 5, 13 or less in 3 of the 5, and his total still at 21 today. Although I do lean them first half, you would expect him to play well, but he's been a guy that hasn't been 100%, and that's another big concern for the Pelicans.
Yeah, it is. And it was funny because I know John Harris in the chat room bringing up the fact that the last 2 times the Pelicans played OKC, I believe in their building, they've had success. But, man, does that not feel like a million miles ago, though? Merril, it really, really does. But you nailed it. They were pretty dominant at home. I mean, they did a great job. And by the way, C.J. McCollum heading into the playoffs was averaging about 40-41 PRA over the final month of the regular season. He was an absolute machine, and then disappears. They lose Zion, and C.J. McCollum goes MIA. Ingram is not 100% here, so I would correlate any props with McCollum to a New Orleans victory or cover some shape or form here, because if he doesn't show up, I don't see how they can get this done even at home there. All right, so we got 2 games in the books. And again, shout out to those joining us here today. I know we got some questions on, we'll go back to the Magic in Cleveland here in a minute. I know some of you guys have some questions there. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Shout out to those joining us on IG here today on this Saturday. We appreciate you as well. Hit that follow button as we get ready for, well, I don't know what the easiest game of the night, I think, is here, as the Boston Celtics are in my neck of the woods here tonight, Merril. And I can promise you the crowd in Miami will absolutely be an advantage, unlike what the New Orleans Pelicans have to deal with. So we're seeing 9.5 total now, Merril. This was 205.5. We've obviously seen the money come in on the under 203.5. Miami with the unbelievable win there. Now Boston under double digits for the first time this series as a favorite. I feel like it's deja vu. Like we've been at this point with these 2 teams and these prices. Feel like this just happened, Merril, not too long ago, maybe a year ago. What are we doing in this matchup? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, it's the big difference from last year, though, is that obviously Butler and Rozier are both out right now, 2 of their top players. And yes, they won without them. I know that in game 2. But if you recall, we did the show Wednesday, the NBA show here on WagerTalk TV. And I liked Miami. I gave them out on WagerTalk today. I gave them out on the show. I said if there was a spot I thought they could sneak in, and I didn't think necessarily get the straight-up win, but get the cover at least, it was game 2, because game 1 was Boston's spot. After losing in the Eastern Conference Finals last year in game 7 at home, after being down 0-3, they won 3 straight, and then the Celtics lost game 7 at home. They weren't going to overlook Miami, and that's why they smacked them by 20. But they had a 30-point edge from three-point range. And I'd mentioned that the Heat were plus 20 from down in the paint and only lost by 20 because it was just weird. It was a 3-point variance. So I thought Miami could maybe bounce back. Well, it was literally the exact opposite result in game 2. Miami was now plus 33 from 3-point range, and the Celtics were exactly plus 20 in the paint. Both teams that lost were plus 20 in the paint each game. The difference is when Boston was plus 30 from 3, they won by 20. Miami was plus 33, they only won by 10. I think that's a really bad sign. Now, if they hit more threes, if they hit a franchise high 23 like they did in game 2, they're going to win again. I'm not willing to bet on that. 3-point shooting with the Celtics is always the great random variable, but this is a focused spot. Now, I do agree it'll be a good atmosphere for Miami. Even though they're not down 0-2, I think they probably feel like they're an 0-2 team still, and they got to win. So the first half line is interesting. Boston's -6 for the first half, but then for the full game, they're only -9.5, 9.5. I would like Boston full game a lot better than the first half. If you're going to play Miami, I think you could take a shot with the 6 or 6.5 because maybe they do come out fast. But I think Boston wears them down overall. I like Boston full game. I definitely like them in game if you get a discounted price. I don't think history repeats itself like it did last year.
Yeah, I agree, Merril. I think first half when Miami is not a bad look, but it's all going to come down to who's hitting threes. It's what it always comes down to with these two teams eventually at that particular point here. The total is interesting, Merril, because one of these two teams is going to hit some threes in this game, which will probably force the other team to step it up here. It feels like another over spot here. I don't think this is going to be a 185, 190 point situation here. It certainly feels the market at 205.5 pushed it down to 203.5. But if either of these teams shoot 37, 38% or more, this thing is flying over the total, Merril.
Yeah, you just look at the regular season meetings. The last 2 regular season games in January and February had totals of 225, to put this in perspective. And then we saw all those unders after the All-Star break. We've seen the playoff games stay under more than not. Game 1 was 210. Game 2 was around 205.5. And now game 3, we're about 204.5, despite the fact game 2 went over. But then again, everyone analyzes that box score, realizes the teams hit 35 threes. They hit 38 and 54% from 3-point range. So that's why they bumped it down. They still only got to 212 shooting like that. So if they shoot their normal range, this should be in the low 200s. But once again, like you said, Joe, it's so random because you just got to analyze our team's going to make their threes or not. And that's what is so tricky about the NCAA tournament is the one-and-done games, the single-game scenarios. Anything can happen. We saw that in game 2. The likelihood of it happening twice, so in my opinion, is less likely. So I'd probably lean under for that reason. I look for a regression back to the norm from the shooting.
And ironically enough, I know if you're looking at the prop market, guys, this is Miami was worse. It's kind of hard to believe, but Miami actually played worse defense at home and allowed more 3-pointers at home than they did on the road. I think it was about a 2% difference home and away. So they allowed more 3-pointers at home than they did on the road. That's not what we were used to from this Miami team over the years. It was good luck trying to get enough points here, but they have proven this year that the defense has taken a step back at home. So it's going to give guys, I think, like Derek White, who is, I think his number was 12.5 points, somewhere in that ballpark, and he's already eclipsed that in 2 games. And now, while I get it, he's on the road here. Miami has shown their defense not better on the road than at home, which I think is kind of crazy, Merril, when you think about it.
Yeah, what I like to do with the props is look for guys that take a lot of shots but maybe aren't hitting them. And one guy that jumps out to me is Drew Holiday. He's gone under in both games so far with only 6 and 9 points. His prop was 11.5 and 10.5 each game. Now it's down to 10, even some 9.5s out there. And I think he's due to shoot a little bit better. He's a guy that was just 2 for 8 in game 1. And then in game 2, he was 4 for 12. And he still got to 9 points. He almost got over the price tonight going 4 for 12. So I think Holiday actually could be the little sleeper prop guy. It's always tricky with the big names. You know, I mentioned I thought Tatum would regress a bit after the triple-double. And another thing I did point out about game 1 is that he had that triple-double, and he was only +3 on his plus-minus for the starters. Everybody else was 13 or 17 or better. Tatum in game 2 actually had the second-best plus-minus. So he's so up and down. But he still had 28 points, still had 8 rebounds. So he's playing really well. I would expect a big game out of Tatum. But, yeah, Drew Holiday is a guy I think could have an overnight, over 9.5 points if you're looking for a little sleeper prop from the Celtics.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to look with Tatum either, because they've had absolutely no answer for him. But he's done a pretty good job of starting every game pretty hot here, and he's going to need to do the same. I know there was some questions as whether or not Jaime Jaquez can continue to deliver here, and it looks like I've seen some that are backing Boston in this one think that Jaime Jaquez, although he's had a great year, I mean, a kid, solid rookie season here, and he's been thrown into the mix quickly here with the absence of Jimmy Butler. But they're going to need to control him, Boston, and I think there's some guys are looking to get a little fade going on here. I believe 18.5 total points and assists for him, somewhere in that ballpark there. If he goes MIA, it could very well be lights out for Miami here tonight. Holiday Titan CT is with you there, Merril. Will earn his check here today, and I can see that. Also, Celtics team total over. Merril Ray is suggesting that one there. I don't have that number in front of me, but I would imagine that's probably a reasonable situation. 107.5?
Yeah, 107, 97.5 are the two team totals. Yeah, I don't have a real feel in the game total. Like I said, I lean probably a little bit under just after the big shooting nights by both teams. I look for them to crack down on the perimeter or D a little bit more. So I'd probably prefer Boston instead of the Boston team total.
All right. So, and that, of course, leaves us to everyone's favorite, the Los Angeles Lakers here tonight, Merril. I didn't even know they still had a team. I'm with you. I had no idea they still even had a team. I thought their season ended 6 months ago. They are now, but here's the thing. Now the Nuggets went from what? A pick'em in that first game, right? In game 3 there, the first game at home for LA, and now they're laying 3.5. So finally, it looks like the market is realizing, all right, you win, Denver. Lakers suck. 218.5 is the total here, Merril. What exactly are you thinking is going to happen? Is it another 4-game sweep in store for the Lakers here tonight?
Well, the first thing that's interesting is that the adjustment they have not made, or they have made now, is the first half. They're no longer shading it like they've been with the Lakers. First half line, when I did my overnight video, was 1.5. Game was 3. But then as I was doing the video last night, it was juicing 3.5. And now, like you said, Joe, it's 4 in most spots. So we saw this coming. It does look like it's a bit pricey now from Denver going from +1 to -4. But a couple things. First of all, teams historically down 0-3 get swept because they know they can't win the series. Now, occasionally they do come back and fight a little. But let's look at what happened last year. These teams played in the Western Conference Final. Yes, Denver won 4-0, but it's so eerie how similar it's played out to this year because the Lakers lost both games 1 and 2 very close, 5 and 6 point covering losses at Denver. They actually covered both but lost. Now, they didn't cover game 1, but they were leading at halftime. They had a 20-point lead in the second half of game 2 and just collapsed. Yet they still came out and covered the first half in game 3 up 4 at home and then just ran out of gas. Last year, it was interesting. In game 3, they trailed at the half and got blown out by double digits. And then they come back in game 4 and they lead by 15 points at halftime in a meaningless game 4 last year. And they still ended up losing by 2, which means they got outscored by 17 in the second half of game 4 last year. They were a 5.5-point favorite in game 3. They were a 3.5-point favorite in game 4. So obviously, being +4, this is a 7.5-point adjustment. Point is, though, I do not trust the Lakers. They came out flat last year in this spot. They did come out strong in the first half. So if you're going to play them, you probably play the first half here. I would prefer to sit back and stay off this game and maybe grab Denver in-game at a discounted price. And the Nuggets have done this all season long, regular season and postseason, is they get behind and then they turn it on in the second half. So the worst thing that happens here is that Denver blows them out from the start. You just don't play the game. But I like an in-game opportunity here where if they get down early, maybe get an adjusted price, get it more around the pick-em range, and then come in with the Nuggets because they most likely do win this and sweep them. The Lakers season should be over after tonight.
Yeah, that's a hell of a Malone is out-coached Darvin Ham, and that's really when you look at these second half meltdowns here, Merril, the adjustments just aren't there. This Lakers team, I don't understand why the Lakers, you got swept last year by Denver, and you pretty much brought back the same damn team this year to get swept again. Like, I don't understand what the hell you were thinking. What was going on here? Why in the world would you bring back the same dudes that just got beat a year ago from the Denver Nuggets. And the only thing I can come up with, they didn't like Darvin Ham. He's not a great X's and O guy. He's a do guy. He's a do whatever the front office and LeBron want. But right. LeBron, for the first time that I can remember, is also talking a lot about life after basketball. And that's usually the first sign, Merril, that the end is very, very near here for the Lakers and LeBron.
The guy is almost 40 years old. He's like 39-ish, 39 and a half. It is really incredible how well he still plays. And that's why I got into this with the comments and the chats. I'm starting to think he might be the greatest ever. And I'm not a huge LeBron fan off the court, but what he's doing at 39 is pretty impressive. But it also is not a surprise that a 39-year-old would wear down in the second half, especially when you get the inferior coach. And I'll tell you another guy that's wearing down in the second half. Anthony Davis, the last two games, has over 60 points combined in the first three quarters. He has 2 points total the last two games in the fourth quarter. Scoreless in game three, 2 points in game two. He is sure not helping the cause either, with LeBron wearing down and him not showing up, going MIA. So lots of reasons, once again, to like Denver later in this game. Not using it pregame, but I do think the Nuggets at a good adjusted price could be worth a look.
Yeah, let's see. We do have a little bit of day drinking, I think, happening now on YouTube. Usually that's reserved for the comments on Instagram, but no, we've got, weekend. What is it? Bokum Dano says Lakers are going to come to play today, and I am not day drinking, Joe. Yes, you are. You are absolutely day drinking here. He is burning some Biscayne cookies, though, so that's a good thing there. We appreciate that. I can't see it. There is nothing the Lakers do better than Denver, guys. Nothing. And the fact that they have played as well as they have in the first half in this series and still don't have a win in this series, that tells you everything you need to know. The Lakers are not better than Denver in any way, shape, or form. And I think Denver at this point is just, in order for the Lakers can be as pissed and motivated as they want, right? But Denver's the better team, and Denver are the champs and been here and done this before with the same team. There's nothing they can pull out of their hat that's going to surprise Denver here, Merril, right?
The thing that I can't get my grip around is that this was the same situation last year, yet the Lakers win the first half by 15 points. And not only that, Joe, let's put in perspective what happened in the first half last year. They scored 73 points. The halftime score in game 4 last year was 73-58. And the game still stayed under. The total was 113-111. They completely fell apart second half offensively, which once again goes back to coaches' adjustments, goes back to the Nuggets turning it on as they've done all season long when they want to. I was watching the game a few Sunday nights ago, like a month ago. They're losing to Portland in the third quarter, win by double digits still. So I could see the Lakers, and the Nuggets, meanwhile, coming out a little bit flat. And it wasn't that the Lakers came out great. I just think the Nuggets came out flat in game 4. They gave up 73 points in the first half, and then they held them to 38 points in the second half. So once again, -4 is a pricey price. So let's see, maybe if the Nuggets get down, play them in game here. If not, you just stay off the game tonight.
Will Lefty 300 in the chat. I like where he's thinking. Alt line Nuggets -7.5. Damn, dude, I like the way you think, man. That is what I'm talking about here. It's a blowout. Now, the good news is LeBron can now try and spend the rest of his time this postseason trying to convince the front offices to draft Bronny. And let's see how that goes, because that should be a whole lot of fun there, since he can't even play at USC. But I'm sure he'll do great in the NBA. Yeah, let's see how that works out there.
What a train wreck that's going to be. You're going to have the worst 21-year-old in the league and the oldest guy, the 40-year-old, is his father on the same team. I mean, no wonder Anthony Davis doesn't show up. Hey, speaking of guys that don't show out, I've been giving away a lot of the free props in my daily videos. Check out, I have a deep breakdown of all 4 games. And by the way, I gave out different props in the video than I used on the show today. So there's a lot of different content. But in game 2, I really liked D'Angelo Russell over points after a bad game 1. He took a lot of shots. I think he was like 1 for 9 from 3. And that was probably the easiest prop we'll have all season. He had 6 threes in the first half, got to it on his own from 3. Well, he had no points in game 3 and 0 for the other night. So we talk about another guy that didn't show up. So I do think he probably bounces back, and we get some value now. They've bumped that total down a couple points because of the 0 for. And the other reason it works is you think Denver's worried about him. He's had 2 bad games and 3, So his total, by the way, was 15.5, went up to 17.5. Now it's 14.5. So I do like D'Angelo Russell over 14.5 points. He has had 19 or more in 3 of the other 4 games and 13 in game 1 when he didn't go over, with 1 for 9 from 3. So we'll see if, and by the way, they've called him out a little too. So he might be chucking up threes from half court just to try to get there.
Oh, I can see that happening here. I know I've seen some comments here, guys, and drop any questions you have for RR1L. Steve Merril in here if you have any in this game. And I know we do have a couple of questions here from the Cleveland and Orlando game, which is coming up in just about an hour here. But I'm seeing Joker over 49.5 PRA here today, and they have no answer. So can't talk you off of that one there, because I think that's the key. Russell is going to D'Angelo Russell. Really, really quality shooting game. Last one out too as well, when he was just 0 for 23 at one point in that game. It was kind of laughable. He can't even. But the good news is, Merril, it's what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same crap and expecting a different result, right? Wasn't he like this last year during the series? Didn't he go MIA last year too? So congrats, Lakers. You figured it out. He sucks when it matters the most. Total wise in that Cleveland and Orlando, that seems to be a big question here from a number of people, Merril. 201.5. It barely snuck over in the last game there. What are you thinking total wise in this one?
Yeah, I'll be honest. You basically cannot even look at the last game. It's almost like saying no key players played for anybody, because the guys were limited because of the blowout. They had over a 40-point lead. They won by 38. So yet it's still, like you said, landed within a basket of the total, which is really comical almost. But it was 204. Total was 202. But you really can't look much at that. What I prefer to look at are games 1 and 2, where Orlando really struggled offensively. Yes, they're a better home team, but I look for Cleveland to really put the defensive brakes on them. Bickerstaff, the head coach, said after the game, we got to rebound better. And that was something I thought was interesting, because Cleveland had 5 offensive rebounds in the game. They had 25 offensive rebounds at home in games 1 and 2. And put in perspective how bad it is to have 5 offensive rebounds. They only shot 39%. They missed 50 shots and only rebounded 5 of them. So I look for them to really focus on the boards. I think that brings more defensive intensity. It slows the game down. It's a low total, but this has been a pure under series. Otherwise, games 1 and 2 got to 180, 192. And once again, I don't put much stock into the game 3 result. It was just a blowout from the start. Under would be my preferred play on the total.
Yeah, I kind of with you there. Although I'm impressed with Orlando and their ability to be able to bounce back at home, comfort level there. But you are going to see a much more focused Cleveland Cavaliers team here. And so it sounds like, Merril, are we getting Cleveland is really the one dog that stands out to you today in these 4 games here? It's really, and it's a small dog, but they seem to be the one. Everything else feels pretty chalky. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's the one situation in which we get the better team as a dog, and they're still a 370 favorite in the series, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And yet we're getting them at a bigger dog here in game 4 than they were in game 3. And the spot in game 3 was terrible for them. That's why I faded them. So, yeah, I definitely think Cleveland's the most live of the 4 dogs, and that's not even close, probably.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is either there. We also have a lot of guys looking at agreeing with you here. Cavs plus 130, way to go. I am seeing Cavs first quarter. Some guys thinking that maybe the Cavs come out immediately, and the struggle bus continues there for Orlando shooting, which is not a crazy idea there. And I did see a whole lot of Bam Adebayo leading scorer there for Miami today, too. I don't hate that idea because, yeah, he's going to have to play a big role if they're going to keep this thing close. I don't know that it's going to be all 3-pointers, but Bam's going to have to eat in the paint at some particular point as well.
Yeah, Tyler Hero had a huge game, obviously. Not only did he have 24 points, he led the team also with 14 assists. And Jimmy Butler said he gave him the metaphorical leadership role before the game. But as is often the case, so when a guy burns you like that, they look to shut him down. And he also took 11 threes. So I'd be careful with Hero here in the bounce back, especially if you like Boston. A guy I thought was interesting was Spoelstra came out and said Caleb Martin's the X factor. And he had 21 points in game 2. But then you look at what Martin's done recently. He had 4 points in game 1, 7 points against the Bulls last Friday, and 5 points in that first play-in game against the Sixers. So he had 5, 7, and 4 the other postseason games. Yet his total was 9.5, 11.5, 9.5, 7.5. He gets 21, and now it's back up to 9.5 to the over. It's about 20%, almost 25% higher. Yet he has stayed under this still in 3 of the last 4 postseason games. So I would maybe look for Caleb Martin to regress here in game 3.
Yeah, a lot of Jaylen Brown. When is his game? Is what some Celtics fans are asking. Merril, when? To me, he is the biggest anomaly. Like, he'll either drop 35 on you, or he'll have 15, and you won't cash a ticket one way or the other with him. Tatum seems to be the guy early, and then it just seems to be a group effort late here. Can Brown be trusted in any of the prop betting markets here? Sure, he could have a huge night, but it's a crapshoot with him.
Yeah, Brown was 6 for 12 in game 1, 3 for 5 from 3. So he's like 50% shooting, still only got to 17 points. And then he took a lot more shots the other night. Now, granted, they were losing most of the game, so he took 9 threes. He was 13 for 23, got 33 points, led the team, but he was also minus 22 plus minus. I'd be careful with Brown. I could see him regressing a little bit here, and they've bumped the total from 20.5 up to 21.5. I'm just always looking to play guys that underperform or vice versa. And he, by the way, had 17 or less points 3 straight games before that 33 the other night. So if I had to guess, I'd say he's probably going to regress a little, but I'm hesitant to say that because I do like Boston in this game. So a little bit of a contradiction there.
Yes. Gunning, by the way, yes. It looks like Cavs plus, what number are you seeing now, Merril? Do we have numbers up for the Cavs right now on the money line? Let's see if we have numbers.
Game 4 for the series. Yeah, for the series, they're minus 370. Yeah, for the game, they're 2.5 point dog. It's as high as plus 120 now. So it's higher than it was in game 3. And, once again, anything can happen. But I really liked Orlando in game 3. We doubled up on it first half, full game, as part of that 12-0 run we were on. I just don't see it. This is a much better spot for Cleveland. They're the better team off a blowout loss. By the way, I wouldn't necessarily play them first quarter. I could see Orlando using that home crowd energy, and that does concern me because they are a much better team at home. They're a young team. They feed off that energy. So I'd rather have the better team, Cleveland, for a longer duration of 48 minutes. So I don't really recommend first half or first quarter with Cleveland. If you're going to play them full game, plus money on the money line, or wait for an end game, maybe they do get down early, and then you come and get a better number, maybe get a +4, +4.5. Lots of different ways to play them.
Yeah, Capo going third and fourth quarter, Celtics money line. That's not a bad look. That's usually when they begin to break away when they do it. A lot of Caleb Martin is inconsistent. I get that. Big shout out to Big Bird, by the way, new to us here at WagerTalk. We appreciate you swinging by, Big Bird. Thanks for hanging with us here as we are certainly looking at cashing a few tickets here, not just in the NBA here today, but Major League Baseball. Shout out to the Big Bird getting it done here today. And yes, once again, those of you just joining us, Canning, that is a good bet on the money line. Merril plus 2.5 or the money line with Cleveland. It's still a bucket one way or the other. Would you just take them on the money line?
No, I would split it. I mean, why guess? You can put a half a unit on the point spread, half a unit on the money line. Whenever you're playing underdogs in any sport, especially the NBA or NFL, there's nothing wrong with doing that. My advice was to be consistent, though, because what you hate, the reason I like playing it on the money line is because then they lose by 2 and you lose your full unit, So, right. And you're only picking up a little extra juice at plus 120. So I would play more of it on the point spread, and maybe sprinkle a little bit on the plus money as well, either a quarter unit or a half unit. But I would not put all of it there. I just, from an emotional mindset, I don't like losing a game when it would have covered. At least break even or still pick up a little bit if you have more in the point spread.
Yes, and Christian Kim in the house there, and we talked about it earlier. McCollum, absolutely the X factor. They don't win New Orleans if McCollum doesn't get off the pot, if you know what we're talking about. So if you're looking for props, correlate it to New Orleans because otherwise they're going to be MIA. He is much better than what he has shown for these 2 games. He's at home. He better show up here today or it's going to be lights out for the New Orleans Pelicans in that one there. All right, Merril, we did mention earlier we saw with the Houston Astros a 16.5-point line against now Colorado. Most people just think this game is Colorado because it's 16.5 points. It was as high as 17.5 last night. This is in Mexico City. I asked TB, he didn't seem to think altitude would be an issue. Well, I don't think it'll be an issue for Colorado. I sure as hell think it's going to be an issue for the Houston Astros, at least maybe in game one. I think they got another one coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a 2-game series. They did this for the first time last year. It was actually supposed to happen back in 2020. Arizona, I believe it was San Diego also, because the Padres have a huge Mexican following being on the border there. But it got canceled due to COVID, and then they didn't do it until last year when the Padres played the Giants. Game one was 16-11, 27 runs. Then we saw a huge adjustment, several runs higher. And I believe, I'd have to look it up, but I believe that total was like 11 or 12, and then they bumped it like 16, 17, and it ends 6-4 game two. So the two teams did still combine for 37 runs in 2 games. Over is the only way I would play it personally. It's a couple thousand feet higher than Denver, so the ball will travel even more. And a couple things to keep an eye on next week after this series. First of all, Ralph Michaels and I were on Thursday on the NBA show, and Ralph had a great angle about how teams playing after Denver and Utah don't do well in the NBA against the spread. They're actually now 1-11 ATS. What's also interesting, though, is he said it transfers to teams playing in the Rockies and also teams that play after the Broncos, even in the NFL. So both Houston, well, not Colorado, they're used to it, but Houston could have a carryover altitude letdown when they resume in the States. And by the way, they're at home against Cleveland next Tuesday through Thursday, and Cleveland's had a great bullpen. Houston's had one of the worst bullpens in baseball, so something to keep an eye on. Another thing to keep an eye on, last year, the Giants, when they came back, I believe it was pitcher Webb said they had a lot of them had stomach problems after being in Mexico City. Don't drink that water. I guess they didn't get the memo.
Yes.
But all seriousness, they did have some stomach problems. So I'd be careful with Houston next Tuesday, especially when they're back home against Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a good point. It is absolutely important to look ahead here, guys. Scheduling is what it is all about here. What else did you have ready? Your down home run, Capo is saying as well. I would imagine home run props going to be pretty interesting in this game as too, Merril. They're probably juiced to high hell, but I imagine a few balls are going over the fence here in this game.
Yeah, let's put in perspective how bad the Astros have been this year. They're 7-19. They have the same record as the Rockies, who are expected to be one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in baseball. And Houston has now lost 5 straight and 8 of their last 9. 2 ways to look at it. Does this trip to Mexico City spark plug their season, or do they completely mail it in? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to watch this series. The Astros, by the way, have now gone under every game during that 1-8 span with 1 push. They have not gone over for 9 straight games. And now we get a 16.5. But I do like the over here. It's the only way I would play it. That's how much the altitude, because Houston's pitching's been a real problem. But, yeah, the home run props do concern me because the Astros are not hitting the ball well otherwise. They're going to need that altitude to help them. And Colorado also a very shaky offensive team on the road in general this year. But they do hit well at home normally. The average home run, total, the average total at Coors is like 12 or so. This is a little bit higher, but yeah, I think the home run props are worth a look because that's one of the reasons I like the over.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Eric, you are a sick man. And what else do you have going on today in Major League Baseball? Anything locked and loaded over at WagerTalk for you, Steve?
Yeah, still finalizing the baseball card. I actually have a free play posted right now. Check out the daily free plays. I do have a strong NBA playoff best bet for one of the games that we've talked about here on Saturday. And we're on a 12-3 run since the playoffs began in baseball and basketball combined. And it's been a nice start, 9-2 in the NBA playoffs alone, 3-1 in baseball over the past week. Might want to consider that summer special that's on my page right now. And this weekend's your last chance to get all baseball and basketball for the next 3 months plus for just $5 a day. That takes you all the way till the preseason NFL begins on August 1st. And no promo code is needed. If you want a smaller package, we do have a buy 3 days, get the 4th day free still available through this weekend. And both of those are on my page. They're on the left-hand side. You scroll down below the best bet for tonight, below the free play for tonight, and you'll see those special offers, all sports, all access, 12-3, 80% run over the past week. We got a strong best bet tonight. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
All right, I am seeing shits and giggles parlay time before we get out of here, before we go. And boy, there is some interesting shits and giggles teams being thrown out in the chat rooms here, Merril. Some of it is so disgusting, I refuse to actually repeat it here. But I will say this. The Miami Heat right now seem to be getting some money here as the line is just dropped from 9.5 to 9 in some spots. And I'm also seeing the money come in on the over. I'm up to 204.5 now here, Merril. This thing again started 205.5. It was bet down quickly down to the 203.5. And now it's starting to creep up here. What is the big public dog of the day we should be worried about?
Interesting, because when I was doing my standalone video overnight, I was trying to find some public consensus data, and I really didn't see much on these games. I did see a little bit of a lean to Miami in some spots. I couldn't confirm that with all the indicators I look at, but my gut, Joe, would tell me Miami is probably a bit of a public dog. Once again, I wouldn't officially call them that, but just my gut instinct tells me that the average Joe is probably, no offense, is probably looking to play the Miami Heat. You're not the average Joe, by the way, although you are probably playing the Miami Heat.
But we'll see what happens. It was the Lakers. I would have said it was the Lakers. I would have thought the Lakers seemed to be.
Yeah. Well, we see if it is, it's a sharp square divide, because that line was 3 when I did the video last night, and it was actually creeping to 3.5 Friday night as I was recording, and now it's 4.
Yep.
That's the only reason I don't, and I don't know. I mean, I will say this, we love the comments. I read all the comments. I reply back, and I really do think we have the sharpest viewers here on WagerTalk TV, also the best day drinkers out there. But several people on my video told me that they've been cashing big with Lakers first half, Nuggets full game. They've been getting like 5-1 payoffs. It's cashed 3 straight games, of course. And it could cash again. Game 4, once again, last year, Lakers were up by 15 first half, Nuggets 17 second half. So that's something that's been working real well for people, is Lakers first half, Nuggets full game, a correlated 2-teamer.
Big Bird's in agreement with you, Steve. You're right, thinking the Miami Heat might be the public dog of the day here. So Celtics down to -9, total up to 204.5, and we'll see what happens with that Laker line, because that's the last game, I believe, right? 8 o'clock, that's the final game. We'll see what kind of public push we get in those there. And shout out, by the way, to Instagram, not nearly as drunk as they have been all week long today. Kudos to you guys hanging out with us, Matty Crenshaw and company. Capo, love it, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in the chat room on YouTube Shorts. Guys, the only thing we ask is if you like the content, you enjoy it, the thumbs up would be much appreciated. And Big Bird and others that might be new to us here, hit that subscribe button, become part of the WagerTalk TV family, as we've got plenty more content coming your way all playoffs long, all Major League Baseball season long. We have got you covered. Don't forget about the NHL, too. Plenty of content about today's game on the ice as the playoffs are upon us here. All sorts of good stuff. Go Panthers. That's all I'll say to that. Merril, best of luck, man. Get out of here today. And Eric, Big Daddy, Gunning, Big Bird, you guys that hang out with us, Ryan, we appreciate you guys so much, man. Again, best of luck. Cash those damn tickets. Come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll do it again and see if we can come up with some more winners. Until then, enjoy your day, guys. Cash those tickets. We'll talk to you again soon.